and love Levi. I know and love Levi. So Levi's doing a bold thing this week. Oh, podium. So I'm just gonna do a brief sort of like, I'm gonna bracket this situation a little bit. So Levi, is it fair to say that you're feeling God stirring your heart, and calling you to do something?
Yeah, it's fair to say that.
It's fair to say that. So, like putting your money where your mouth is. Yeah. Did you just happen to quit your job recently?
I did. I just quit my job about 3 weeks ago.
You just quit your job 3 weeks ago because God was kind of stirring your heart.
Yeah.
And what direction is He taking?
So I'm working on Berean Bible School. So I'm doing that online. Yeah.
Amen. So for those of you that don't know, that's a correspondence training program through the AG for ministry.
Yeah. And so I'm on class number 3, and I wasn't able to really do it while I was working 60 hours a week. So I went and I quit my job, and I got a new job in that time. Yeah, and I work for a school, so that's cool. I'm a lunch lady. Yeah. Food dude.
Same beard.
Dude. Yeah.
Same beard.
Yeah, but it's great. So I'll be able to invest more time into learning and developing. And Pastor Mark was like, "Hey, you want to preach?"
Which is why I just think this is awesome, right? Because here he is. He's in life. He's got a good job. He's got a nice little family, right? You know, things are happening. And here's the Candygram. No, not Candygram.
Candygram.
There's the.
Yeah.
Hey. And he said, "Hey, back."
Yeah.
God ever knock on your heart? Man, it is courageous to say, "Hey, back." But that's where it's at. Saying, "Hey, back." Being in dialogue. Knowing that God is reaching out to you. So, as we've been walking together and I'm seeing this, I want to give him opportunity to share what God's doing in his heart. Amen? Like if somebody's willing to change their whole life, pretty much to give up their income so that they can listen to God, he's got something to say. So anyhow, please, I just want you to give him your attention, because I know that God has been working something in his heart through the Word this week. And I pray that God will work something through my heart and through your heart through his humble servant.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. I didn't put these in order before I got up here. That's silly. Yeah. Boom. So today we are going to be talking about the parable of the talents. And I don't know if you guys have probably heard that story before, because it's a nice old parable. And one of the versions that I read it in, it was actually called the parable of the bags of gold. And I thought that sounded really cool. So I'm going to just say bags of gold a lot too. It doesn't actually say if it was gold in some versions. Some versions says silver, some says gold. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And so as I was going through this week, and Pastor Mark, he gave me some great advice. He told me, read the chapter before and the chapter after, and don't take it out of context, because you don't want to do that, because Christians often take things out of context. We often can, and we don't want to do that. So I read the chapter 24, 25, and 26 a whole bunch of times in a whole bunch of versions, and there's a lot to say about different versions. I'm going to be reading out of the NIV this morning, so that's a good version. I also read out of the Amplified, and just for giggles, I went and did King James too. No, it's a good version. It's a good version. That's right. So that was the version that I grew up with, by the way. So I like the King James a lot. So why don't we'll just read it. We'll start out reading it, and then I'm going to go back and I want to dig into it a little bit more, and that'll be fun. Amen. So, okay, I got a little ahead of myself. Chapter 24 is about the destruction of the temple and the end times. So Jesus is walking with the disciples, and he's going towards Jerusalem, and he's talking about the destruction of the temples in the end times. Okay, so that's 24. 25, he talks about the 10 virgins, And that's a cool parable too. And then the parable of the talents, and then the parable of the shepherd with the sheep and goats. So that's 25. And then in 26, let me just turn this. The plot against Jesus, and that's how Jesus betrays him. So this is like right at the end. This is the end, or the beginning, for Jesus. He's going towards Jerusalem. He's going to be crucified. It's his last days on earth. He's got some important things to say. And so as we go and we read through this, keep that in mind that these are some important things that are going on. So I don't have any notes, so you're just going to have to use a Bible. Parable of the bags of gold in NIV, starting at 14. Feel free to follow along if you'd like. Again, it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more bags of gold. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the one who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole into the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of these servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. The man with the 2 bags of gold also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I have gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. And 24. Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I knew you were a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid, and I went out and hid gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. You knew that I harvest where I had not sown, and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well then, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. And so we're going to pause right there, because I want to let the next part just kind of build up. So, yeah, that's a whole lot of stuff going on there. 3 servants, each given talents, each made the team. They're with the master. Who here likes NFL? Who likes football? Okay, they're over here. They're these guys. No, you guys are there. Okay, so in the NFL, if you make the team, right? If you're getting paid to play, you're making a lot. So when we look at this, we don't want to think, oh, that guy only got 1 talent. He made the team. He's making a lot. He's doing well. So one of the things, here's a fun fact for the day, if you don't know. A talent, who knows what a talent is? Tap dancing, yeah. No, I'm not going to do that. Some people know, but a talent's a measurement of weight. It's a measurement of weight. It's approximately 58 to 80 pounds. And so when he says he gave somebody 5 talents of silver or gold, that's 350 pounds. Approximately, I averaged it out, it was like 70. So 350 pounds. If they said 2 talents of gold, that's 140 pounds. Like, of metal that's worth a lot of things. And so they had to carry this around, or they had to do something with it. So in 14, when they said they immediately went and invested it, they're taking, with effort, they're taking and investing these things. It's not easy. And then the one guy with the 2 talents had 58. So one of the next verses, in the next verse, he says that he gave them these talents according to their abilities. So to me, that means that this master knew his servants. Like if you work with somebody and you just started working with them, you're not going to know their abilities. Like it takes time to learn somebody's abilities or to even foster somebody's abilities. You know, this master probably trained these people in some fashion. And so he knew their abilities, and he knew that the guy with 5 talents, the 5-talent guy, as he will forever be known in my world, the 5-talent guy, he had a lot of talent, and he had a lot of abilities. And so I kind of associate them with somebody like Peter or Paul, somebody who has a lot of abilities. Okay, and then the 2-talent people, they also have abilities, they also have talents, but I would compare them to maybe somebody like the other disciples. I don't know who can name all the disciples, but I remember Peter and Paul very well. And some of the others are not as in the forefront. So maybe those were like 2-talent people. But don't worry, we made the team too. We're all in there. The 1-talent guys. So those are everybody else. Those are us. And we all made the team, so it's nothing to be disappointed at if you're a 1-talent person. Because just like these guys had 5 and 2, and they grew these talents, and so that also lets us know talents can be grown. And so in 16, let's see, I'm going to read this one a little bit. Went and traded them immediately. So that was one of the things I liked about the version I read. Some versions don't say went and traded immediately. Some versions, they say they went and made a profit. But I like the word immediately because it means that they didn't procrastinate. And so that's a really good character trait to have is well, not procrastination, but the other one, opposite of procrastination. So in 16, let me just get there. The man received 5 bags, went at once, and gained 5 more. And likewise, the second one did the same. But the one who had 1, he dug a hole. He dug a hole, which it's 140 pounds or 60 pounds. So that's the size of, I'm looking around for children, but like a small dog or a medium-sized dog or a little animal. And so he went and dug this hole, which takes a lot of effort. So just like the 5 talents and the guy with the 2 talents, they had to take their silver and the gold, and they had to take it someplace, the bankers, and that took effort. They had to carry it, and they invested it. For the same amount of effort, because digging holes is not easy, and they probably didn't have cool shovels like we have. They probably had something sharp, but that takes a lot of effort. So for the same amount of effort, you got nothing to remember. So this 1-talent guy, he's really good at digging holes. And maybe that's what the master liked about him. I don't know. It doesn't say. So in verse 19, after a long time, the master of these servants returned and settles accounts with them. So what do we know? The master went away for a long time. It doesn't tell us how long. It doesn't tell us what they were doing in this time, but I would assume for the people with 5 talents and the 2 talents in this parable, that they were watching those investments, that they were making sure that they were growing, that they were aware of them. And I want to say that the 1 parable guy probably was not too concerned about his money in the ground. So that's a really good thing to glean from this parable, is that if we're not aware of our talents and we're not focused on them, they may not be growing for the master. And the master's, God in the parable, Jesus. So it's important to watch our investments. So the master came back. In verse 20, the master was gone for a long time, came back. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold, and so you've gained 5 more. And this is my favorite part of the parable, because it's got the words that I long to hear one day. The master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant." I'm going to have that on my gravestone. I've decided it. And then I go around cemeteries sometime. That sounds weird. Okay, so let me just let me explain a little more. So I've never been like afraid of cemeteries or anything. I think they're great. I think they're beautiful. If you go around and you read gravestone, there's some really, really neat things that people have written on them, and I feel like those people want people to go read them. But more importantly, I play a game on my phone that takes you to graveyards sometimes, and it's Pokemon. It's not a horrible game, and so there's just things to do. You know what? Let's forget I said all that. Growing up, we also played hide and go seek in cemeteries. So I don't know. Cemeteries are great. Moving on. Well done, my good and faithful servants. Those are words I long to hear. He continues, Master, you've been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. Or some versions say, come and share in your master's joy. And so it's, the master was happy. Like, I don't know what the master was expecting. I don't know if he was expecting double, which is a pretty good return on investment for however long he was away for, a lifetime of a person. But he was joyful. And so we know that the master is joyful. And how great is it to experience the joy with somebody who can afford to throw a party? Yeah. It's nice to get together and have fun and stuff, but when someone can really, these are, 5 talents, it's when he got back, that's 700 pounds of gold or silver. That's a lot of money to be able to throw at a party, which is exciting. I believe the master knows how to live a joyful life. So in there he says, I will put you in charge, or you've been faithful with a few things, I will put you in charge of many, come and share in the master's joy. So these guys are servants, and servants get paid. They're not slaves. But even slaves, I guess, back then maybe got paid too. But this servant now has stature. He's going to be put in charge of many things. That's one of the rewards. I know that sometimes it's not always a reward to be put in charge of more things. But I think that the master probably also paid them more, He's proven that he's done a good job. If you're at work and you've proven that you've done a good job, we get our yearly evaluations maybe. If you've done a good job through the year, you get a bonus. You get a pay increase. And so I think that that's really something to think about in this. He's not just getting more things to do. He's getting more stature, more wealth, more solidarity in his life. He doesn't have to wonder where the money's going to come from because, it's a really cool thing to think about. And so he says the same thing about the person with the 2 talents. He says the same thing, well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a little, I will put you in charge of many. So he doesn't make this distinction between how much the 5 talent guy and the 2 talent guy are going to get. We just know that they're going to be put in charge of many and that they're going to share in their master's joy and happiness. So that's something to think about. But when we get to the one talent guy, and oh boy, this guy. So in 24, Master, I knew you were a hard man, harvesting where you had not sown and gathering where you had not scattered seed. So I've worked with people like this. And none of you are in here like this, so I know that I'm safe in saying this. But I've worked with people who are like, well, that's not my job, I've done what I'm supposed to do. So this master's giving him, so a talent of silver would be about 15 years' salary for a servant. That's a lot. That's a lot of money. So he's given him 15 years of salary. And it doesn't say that he has expectations, but they know the master knows them. it's safe to assume that the master has some expectations, and we find out in a second that he did. And so, a lot of money. Master, you harvest what you've not sown, gathering where you've not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. Here's what belongs to you. Here's your dirty gold that's covered in dirt. This is what I think of you, Master. I was afraid. I didn't actually do what you wanted me to do. And so, as I was reading this, I was like, what's the difference between these servants? Like, why does the 5-talent guy go and double it? Why does the 2-talent guy go and double it? What made the 1-talent guy bury his gold or silver or whatever it is? And is it pride? Is it jealousy? Was he jealous of these other 2? Did he was like, oh, I should have gotten 5 talents. I should have gotten 2. I should have gotten 7. Like, what? These guys should have shared the 1. I don't know this person. I just know that a lot of times that I've been around people who only do the bare minimum, it has to do with a sense of entitlement. And so maybe this servant has some issues. He accuses his master. That's the thing I really didn't like about this servant. He accuses his master. You who reap what you don't sow. Like, that's probably an awful thing to say. And so his master, I really like his response. He admonishes him. You wicked and lazy servant. You knew that I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. So he admonishes him, but the master, he doesn't just do that. And it would have been fine for him to just do that. He's the master. But then he also tells him what he should have done. We all know, we serve a good master. And sometimes if we make a mistake, he's going to tell us how to fix it. And so you should have put your money in deposit with the bankers, and then when I've returned, I would have received interest. And so that's, to me, as I was reading this, that was like the bare minimum. That was like he's telling us in this parable the minimum that we can do to please him. And if we please him, we're going to, I think it's safe to assume that as long as we please our master, we're going to be able to share in his joy. And we're going to get to hear those words, well done, my good and faithful servant. And so putting your talents into the bank. When I was reading this and when I was thinking about it, the bank to me was, our church. It was the house of God. It was where we're supposed to give so that we can do the work of God. And it's not this building, but it's the body. And so that's what to me, it kind of means to put your talents into the bank, is to share with your brothers and sisters and invest, and then check on those investments. Oh, we were friends 5 years ago. Are we still friends? I haven't talked to you in 3 years. I'm sorry. But the master's going to be gone for a long time. So it's good to look at our investments and see how they're doing from time to time. After that, he admonishes him, then he teaches him, and then he takes away. Then he takes away the gold. So this is where we left off in verse 28. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. And so that's where I think that the expression too much is given, much is expected. And that's where I think that comes from. Just that was my fun little notice. So the one who made the master a lot got even more because somebody was slacking. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. This is verse 29. And whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And that's pretty dark. So gnashing of teeth, I always thought it was like a gnashing of teeth, but it's like grinding your teeth, like in frustration. I come to find that out. And so if we don't know to be cast out of the Master's presence into darkness where there's gnashing of teeth, that's like hell. That's not a good place to be. Whereas the other two servants got to partake of the Master's joy. And so that's like heaven. And so it's all of these people made the team. You know, there wasn't like the Master set anybody up for defeat he didn't want to do that. The servant simply did not do anything with his talents. And so a big thing that I took from this parable is to not do nothing with our talents. Don't bury it. Because if it's buried, it's not going to do anything for you. It's not going to do anything for the Master and his kingdom. All right. So that's a little dark. That's a little sad. But that's not what we need to focus on. We need to focus on our talents and our gifts and what we've got going for us. As I said earlier, the Master will multiply your talents. I never thought that I would be standing here because this is crazy to me, but I love it. And one of the things thank you. One of the things I was thinking about is it's Pastor's Appreciation Week. Not Masters, I'm sorry. It's Pastor's Appreciation Week, and so at the very least, I can help you appreciate our pastor more. That was Thank you. And yeah. So, so talents. One of the things that I read in the next verse, he's talking about, in the next chapter, chapter 26, or the next parable. It goes on the shepherd with the goats and the sheep, and he's separating these sheep and goats, and he talks about the least of these, and what you do for the least of these, you've done to me also. And then he also said, what you do to the least of these, you've done to me also, because he's talking about the good things and the negative. And so our talents, the things that we're given, some things that he I don't have the verse, but it's in there. Go read it. In verse 34, is in 25 and 30, verse 34, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, having water for the thirsty. If somebody was on the outside and you invite them in, inviting strangers in, visiting prisoners. Those are talents. Those are things that are an investment. None of these things are like a one and done kind of thing. If you feed the hungry, you're going to see hungry people and want to feed them. You're never just going to be like, oh, I fed the hungry that one time. I'm done. Like, I went and visited prisoners that one time. Did they get out? No, they didn't get out. I'm not going to visit them again. And so, prisoners like to get visited, by the way. I have a friend who's in jail or in prison. Jail is like the county stuff. Prison's like the bad stuff. And so my friend, he gets out in another 10 years. He's been in there for 15. And we went to church together. I didn't even plan on sharing this, but we went to church together, and we grew up in the church. And he ended up going to prison, and so I haven't visited him yet. And my buddies went and visited him just the other day, and he let my friends know. Yeah, he was like, I haven't had a visitor in like 3 years. Like, so it's really sad. It's really sad. So go visit a prisoner. That's today's lesson. No. Let me get this one. So there was some questions in there that we can really reflect on this week. And I would say go and read this parable a couple more times, because I read it over and over and over again, and it was It was new and it was and read the chapter before and the chapter after when you're studying the Bible. That was great. So what separated these servants? And this is what we want to think about with our talents. Okay, what separated the servants? Was it jealousy, anger, pride? Is there jealousy or anger or pride in our lives that's separating us from our talents? Okay, so that's one question to ask. And then another question, why do we want to make wise investments? Well, we want to be with God, and we want to be in His joy. And the other question is, why would we not want to make those wise investments? Sometimes, like in this parable, it takes almost as much effort to bury your talent as it does to go to a bank and just put it in. One could argue it takes more effort to do that. And so, as we look at investments, what did God invest in us? What was His investment for us? Jesus. Jesus is the Sunday school answer. It's a good answer. He invested Jesus. He sacrificed Jesus for us. And so if that's His investment, we probably are never going to have to sacrifice our lives for Jesus. I hope. I pray. I pray that I don't have to do that. I don't want to do that. But that's what Jesus did. And in this parable, he's going to the cross. This is like days before He gets sacrificed. And I think one of the big things about this parable is He's trying to tell His disciples what's about to happen. Master's going to be away for a long time. Well, that seems like something that's happening right now. The Master's been away for a long time. There was a Judas who buried the talent, and that didn't turn out well for him. There was some gnashing of teeth in that example. So if you think that you've buried your treasure, it's not too late. Whatever you bury, you can unbury. In fact, I was thinking about this. My mom always likes to say, if you bury a demon, it's going to pop out its ugly little head later on. So it's never too late. I was going to share a little bit of my testimony right here. I grew up in the church in Centralia, and when I was 18, when I was graduating high school, I was like, I don't need any more God. I don't want any more of this. I don't like it. I didn't like the people. I didn't like all this stuff. And I remember driving on a road from Rochester. I was going the back way to Yelm, which is the long roundabout way. But I just remember having this battle with myself and with God, and I was like, I renounce you. And those are not good words to say. I renounce you, Jesus, and I don't want to. And I was committed to that for like 10 years. I didn't go back to church. But I went and I unburied those talents. I saw somebody else who was using their talents. This is my wife. I met her. We got married. And Matthew and I met the Rhodes family, and we were doing theater together, and I saw these talents, and I was encouraged to unbury my talents. And so it's never too late to unbury something. And it's always good to look at things that you may have buried. I never wanted to actually be a preacher or do anything up here because I wanted to be a singer and be over there. And so I had buried something, and I was like, well, I can do that, but I don't want to do that. And so, yeah, we don't want to limit God, and it was really hard to say yes. This is the first time that I ever said yes. Not that I ever said yes, but God very clearly told me that He wanted me to do something, and not preaching specifically, but go to Bible school and do that, and I said yes. And since that's happened, so many things have lined up that I'd love to tell you about it afterwards if anybody wants to talk about it. So many things have lined up that it's really kind of miraculous. And so God will make a way. And that's really the final big thing. If you think you've buried your treasure, and maybe if you don't think that you have, but then as you reflect and you've noticed, oh, maybe I did bury something, that it's never too late to unbury it. So, yeah, that's about all I got. And that's, yeah, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. So, Mr. Mark.
So I didn't make a mistake, did I? So God had something to say through him. Right? God has something to say through you. So just real fast, because you brought enough. I want to talk to you about the imperfect yes. The imperfect yes and the egg timer that's out there. You know, the story of the talents, it's the end to a crest. It's the crest of a wave that's building to kind of make a point. We got 2 men working out in a field, and time's up. We got 2 women milling grain together, and time's up. We got a house broken into that, boy, that the guy who owned the house sure would have rather had been ready when that guy came in. We got a master delayed, and a servant that started off right turns to mistreating others, and that didn't go well. And we got a parable of 10 virgins that, because the master was delayed, they kind of started drifting, doing their own thing, decided, meh. We got the parable of the talents. You know, and all this is building towards something. I don't know if you like your history, but, you know, the story of the Titanic, boy, is it ever going to not come up. It always pops up in pop culture, and we've romanticized how these people played in the band as the ship went down, and wasn't that noble and everything, and it was women and children first, and the richies gave up their spots so the women and children could be on it because there was only so much room to let Leonardo DiCaprio drown. But there was only so much room on the life rafts. And so everybody romanticized this notion of, oh, dying for a cause, da, 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 da. We have life rafts. But the life rafts aren't of a limited capacity. So imagine those people in the water, freezing to death as they were fixing to drown, choosing that when there was still an empty seat. This wouldn't be a noble story. This would be a sad story. This would be a tragic story because they too had an egg timer that was going. Whether God will roll up this scroll within my lifetime or after my lifetime or after the lifetime of my kids, I don't know. And technically, I don't need to know. Because if he comes back and I'm doing my homework, life is good. Because he's not looking for everything to be perfect. He's looking for your imperfect yes. Oh, God, you did. You invested in me. You invested in me free will. You invested in me your very spirit. So now, let me just invest it for you. I don't know what he's given you. But would you make sure that you climb into the boat of faithfulness? Would you make sure that you invest the things that you've been given? Because I thought he painted a really good picture about this guy that was so good at digging a hole. Because he's right. There wasn't good shovel action back then. He was plenty skilled enough to dig that back up. Do you have something you need to dig back up in your life? Because somebody is watching. Somebody's watching. You were watching. Who were you watching? I was watching somebody. Somebody was watching. And they get to be in the boat too. There's always room for more. There's always room for more. A boat without a limit of capacity, always room for more. The ticket has been paid for. So let's just bow our heads in prayer. So Father God, I'm so thankful for the encouragement of your word, of how your very presence and your very spirit dwells completely, unexpectedly, and unbelievably in the hearts of people who are just as normal as us. Lord, thank you for that. Stir our hearts today. Lord, give me the courage to pray for your help in being faithful. Let me find a starting spot. Let your children find a starting spot. You're not looking for us to save the world. You're looking for us to be a reflection of you. And then all of a sudden, we're just little mirrors walking around, and all this light that comes into the room has nothing to do with us. It's all from you. But it's so much better to be in the light. Lord, I pray for a blessing on all those within the sound of my voice this morning. I pray that you would let us go out encouraged to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. Well done, good and faithful servant. Well done, good and faithful servant. Come on in. It's good in here. And to recognize that that is not an invitation that runs out on us. We ask all these things. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.